The sky cracked like glass above the ruins of Jakarta, the clouds torn apart by descending fire as Yavari assault spires stabbed into Earth's crust. They came without signal or preamble, slipping past every orbital detection net by cloaking, within Saturn's magnetic field before diving toward the planet with synchronized brutality. Cities collapsed in minutes, oceans boiled near impact zones, people vanished into heat and silence. Among the screams and chaos, in the heart of a charred neighborhood where once stood an elementary school, a girl no older than 8 sat hunched, beneath a pile of shattered concrete and fractured glass, her eyes wide with a calm that did not belong to any child. Her name was Lyra, though no one had called it out loud since the first sirens fell silent. Around her, twisted metal and scorched leaves quivered, not from heat or pressure, but from something pulsing outward from her skin in waves. The Yavari, hunter drone that detected her heat signature, dropped from its hover with surgical precision, metal limbs unfurling, razor-tipped, blue-eyed with artificial perception. It registered the human child, calculated a non-threat assessment, extended its spinal injector, and was blasted backward by a ripple of air that rippled space itself. Not fire, not sound, something deeper. A wave of energy that turned the drone's sleek body into tangled ash and sent tremors through nearby soil. That moment was recorded by a retreating satellite fragment, what few remained after orbital bombardment, and it was enough. The fragment's signal reached a scattered command bunker beneath the Siberian plateau, where General Alan Morrow, grim-faced and unslept, stared at the image of the child and the obliterated drone. "Run that again," he muttered. The image looped, still no explanation. "Find her," he ordered, "and do not approach until Dr. Kale gets there." In the makeshift Earth defense network, disbelief had long replaced hope. But this was new. Elsewhere, far above Earth aboard the Yavari dreadnought Mornvale, Supreme Strategist Varnis stood alone in the inner chamber of the Synchrony Core, viewing the same footage through his neural interface. His 6 elongated fingers curled into his robes as he paused the image at the moment of detonation. No heat signature anomaly, no photon surge, just distortion, emotion. That made no sense. "Primitive anomaly," he hissed. "She should not exist." His aide, Kalen, waited at a respectful distance, eyes cast downward. "Orders, strategist." Varnis's voice grew quieter, colder. "We erase it. Entire region. No survivors." The child's existence disrupted their calculations. It couldn't be left to fester. Back on Earth, Lyra wandered out from the rubble hours later, her clothes dust-covered, her face blank. She did not cry. She had not cried since her mother vanished in a white flash. The earth beneath her feet hummed softly, almost gently, and the wind curved around her with uncanny attention. When the search drone from the defense network landed nearby, she did not run. She looked at it and said the first words she had spoken since the skies burned. "You shouldn't be afraid of me." The drone hesitated, not by programming, but by sensor disruption, before transmitting her location. By the time Dr. Sarah Kale reached her, escorted by a squad of trembling soldiers and half-working armor units, the ground around the girl had changed. Cracked asphalt had repaired itself into glossy obsidian veins, and shattered window frames hummed faint vibrations. When Lyra stepped near, "She's not emitting energy," Kale whispered into her recorder. "She's harmonizing with it." Lyra turned her head. "The Earth is not dead. It's just been very quiet." That night, miles away in orbit, the Yavari launched a scorched zone obliteration beam toward the region. But something happened. The beam dissipated into a cloud of refracted color before it reached atmosphere. The Yavari commanders watched the footage in stunned silence. "Shielding technology?" one asked. Varnis knew better. He looked back at the still image of Lyra, the unblinking eyes, the unmeasurable energy pulse. Something ancient was awakening. Something their empire, for all its domination, had never conquered. A world that could think. And a girl who remembered what it once felt like. Earth had never been primitive. It had simply been patient. And now, it had chosen a voice. The bunker beneath the Himalayas thrummed with unstable energy as power flickered in irregular pulses, not from external strikes, but from something within. Something tied to the presence of the girl who now sat, cross-legged at its center, eyes half closed, breathing in slow, deliberate rhythm. Lyra had been flown in under full electromagnetic shielding, surrounded by lead walls and scrambling fields, yet even then, the carrier's systems had glitched, panels shorted, and strange, harmonic tremors hummed through the walls. Dr. Sarah, Kale stood a few meters away, palms open, voice calm, trying to coax understanding. "Do you feel anything now?" she asked, watching as the floor around Lyra pulsed in delicate fractal waves. Lyra tilted her head. "Yes. It's sad here." No scientific instrument could explain it, yet the sensors confirmed unusual quantum echoes across the rock layers. Earth itself, its deep crust, was responding to Lyra's presence. General Morrow watched from the reinforced observation chamber. Arms folded, expression hard, but eyes narrowed in something bordering on awe. "She's not just triggering reactions," Sarah whispered over the comlink. "She's syncing. I think she's a conductor, not a source." Across the galaxy, aboard Mornvale, Varnis brooded in his strategy sanctum, his patience eroding. Multiple strike zones had failed. Data came back corrupted. The planetary field had begun resisting scans. Lyra's name now existed in his high priority anomaly matrix, tagged with a level of threat reserved only for rival sovereigns and forbidden artifacts. "Deploy the Veil Piercers," he ordered, referencing Yavari assassins enhanced with frequency-nullifying cloaks. "Kill the child. Quietly." Kalen hesitated, an unusual breach of protocol. "Strategist, if I may. The resonance we recorded. It mirrors some of the lost artifacts from the Tevron fall." Varnis turned sharply. "My empire is not built on myth, it is built on order. Deliver me that child's silence." Back on Earth, Lyra was dreaming, or so it seemed. In her sleep, the mountain groaned gently around her, and the walls of the bunker exhaled soft harmonic sighs. The Earth spoke to her not in words, but in pulses of emotion, flashes of pain from wounded land, ancient joy from forgotten rivers, grief from deforested valleys. She woke with tears drying on her cheeks and a certainty in her voice. "They're coming," she said, "from above. Fast. Cold." Alarms began screaming minutes later. 3 veil piercers dropped through atmosphere undetected, shimmering. Shadows aimed at her location. The base went into emergency lockdown. Morrow cursed, ordering every remaining mech and infantry unit to guard the lower levels. But it was Sarah who reached Lyra first, yanking her into a secure passage. "Stay with me," she shouted, but Lyra stopped running, her bare feet pressed against the ground, and the humming began again, low at first, then rising in perfect thirds until the metal walls vibrated like tuning forks. When the first assassin burst through the corridor wall, its blades already mid-slice, it froze mid-motion. The floor cracked. A line of sapphire light surged outward like a heartbeat amplified, and the veil piercer collapsed into a heap of shimmering dust. The others tried to retreat, but the ceiling buckled, vines burst from cracks, and the bunker itself moved to protect the girl. Later, as Sarah and Morrow watched the footage in stunned silence, Lyra sat in the middle of the debris, surrounded by gentle patterns of light etched into the floor, her voice soft. "They can't stop it. Earth remembers now, and it's not alone." Word of the failed assassination rippled across remaining human outposts. Soldiers who had lost hope began to whisper. Civilians started sending unfiltered radio pulses into the sky with her name in it. Lyra. Some even claimed to feel things near certain places. A pulsing in stones, a hum under lakes, warmth in abandoned fields. Morrow, hardened by decades of Losing Wars called a private meeting with Sarah that night. If we're going to survive, we stop fighting like soldiers. We start listening like she does. Meanwhile, on Mornvale, Varnus received the report of failure and said nothing for a long while. But his hand tightened on the edge of his console until his bloodless knuckles cracked. Then Earth is not the battleground, he muttered. She is. As night fell over the eastern plateau and the stars emerged through fractured skies, Lyra stepped outside the bunker for the first time since the invasion. The soil was warm under her feet. The stars whispered, and the ground answered. The war had changed shape, and so had she. The resonance began to spread like a fever through the fractured remains of Earth, not through wires or satellites, but through memory and emotion, threading itself into the very people who had once believed the war lost. It started subtly. Aisari 8, pilot surviving a crash with no injuries, swearing the cockpit sang to her, a medic placing his hand on a dying soldier's chest and feeling a warmth that reversed the hemorrhage, a child in a crater drawing symbols into the dirt that glowed, faintly under moonlight. They all shared the same symptom, proximity to Lyra. Sarah Kale was the first to map it, her data now a strange hybrid of quantum geophysics and emotional frequency tracking. It's not telepathy, she explained to Morrow as they stood before. A translucent, breathing wall of energy in the reformed command center beneath what had once been Delhi. It's harmonic empathy. The Earth's consciousness is amplifying through her, through us. Outside, volunteers from shattered cities gathered at the resonance field, a place where Lyra had sat in stillness for hours, causing the ground to vibrate in perfect thirds, igniting something in anyone nearby. Some laughed. Some wept. All felt connected. It became a sanctuary and a training ground alike. Morrow transformed Earth's fragmented defense into a resonance command, recruiting not for skill, but for sensitivity. The old guns remained, but something new joined them. Infantry suits laced with crystalline fibers that thrummed with energy when near each other. Aircraft whose hulls sang in formation. Weapons that disarmed when fear spiked in the user's mind. Lyra, barely speaking anymore, moved between zones like a ghost, always barefoot, always humming under her breath. She didn't issue commands. She didn't lead. She harmonized. People followed. And the Earth changed. Deserts bloomed along the paths she walked. Fault lines stabilized. Forests sprouted in fields long barren. But with every miracle, the Yavari's desperation deepened. On Mornvale, Varnus watched a dozen consecutive battle feeds, his troops repelled not by fire, but by invisible fields that scrambled their link protocols, turned their drones against each other, or paralyzed their elite squads in waves of disorientation. Resonance-based warfare, he spat, unable to hide the sneer curling his lip. My empire will not yield to folklore. Yet his empire had begun to fracture. Kalen, once silent and obedient, now questioned orders in private. The child's power grows because we continue to fight her like a weapon. What if she's a response? Varnus's answer was cold. Then let us show her what provoked it. What followed was not a strike, but a message. Yavari forces began targeting resonance fields, not militarily, but symbolically. Cities once untouched were leveled. Civilian zones with known sensitives were glassed from orbit. Hundreds died in seconds. The airwaves choked with screams. The earth wept, and Lyra fell. Not from injury, but from grief. In the heart of the cradle zone, she collapsed onto blackened soil, her body shuddering with silent sobs as storms cracked the sky above. Lightning struck endlessly across continents. The oceans rose, tides surging into coastal ruins. Earth was no longer whispering, it was screaming. She's becoming unstable, Sarah warned, her voice brittle as she and Morrow watched Lyra's vital aura flicker. The planet's emotional field is tied too closely to her now. If she spirals, we all do. Morrow, haunted but resolved, made a choice. He entered the field alone, shedding his comms and weapons. He approached Lyra slowly, unarmored, vulnerable. He knelt beside her, rain soaking his uniform. "I know it hurts," he said softly. "I've buried people too. I've lost everything. Too. But we don't stop because it hurts. We keep going because it hurts. That's the only way it ever changes." Her eyes opened, full of stormlight. "They hate us. Then give them no reason to fear us," he whispered. "Make them feel instead." Lyra sat upright. The storm eased. Around the world, the tremors paused. And then she stood. Her voice rang out across every signal band, every encrypted frequency, carried not by machines, but by resonance itself. "We are not your fuel. We are not your prize. We are the breath of this world and its voice. Come. Listen." The final phase began then. Earth's fleet, rebuilt from fragments and infused with resonance cores, rose from oceans and mountains alike. Each vessel tuned to a harmonic anchor, piloted by crews who no longer needed orders but shared instinct. The resonance war had begun, not for dominance, but to awaken. The enemy would hear Earth, not through words, but through the music of a world done being silent. The void above Earth shimmered with unnatural stillness as the Yavari dreadnought Mournvale loomed into final orbit, its vast form casting a shadow across half a continent, its gravitational anchoring fields warping tides and clouds. Varnis stood at the command altar surrounded by a choir of synchronization nodes, his mind split across fleets, systems, and strategies, but focused always on the girl. "Begin the override sequence," he commanded, initiating a psychic broadcast intended to destabilize resonance frequencies across Earth. Crack their harmony, silence their song. But harmony, it turned out, was not so easily broken, especially when born not of machines but of hearts. Earth's fleet rose from beneath mountain ice caps, volcanic basins, deep ocean trenches, vessels unlike anything built before, their frames semi-organic, shimmering with mineral resonance. They didn't communicate with signals. They sang. Not melodically, but emotionally, grief and memory woven into pulse waves. Each ship's frequency synced with its pilot's core, and at the center of it all flew the Auralis, Earth's first resonance flagship, grown around Lyra herself. She stood at its helm, a quiet stillness in the heart of symphonic chaos, her eyes reflecting the curvature of Earth and the distant silhouette of Mournvale. As the two fleets met in orbit, the stars themselves seemed to blink in anticipation. The first clash was not a volley of fire, but of force, a wave of resonance from Earth's ships striking the Yavari synchrony grid. Varnis's formations wavered, drones faltered, their commands scrambled not by jamming, but by emotional dissonance, doubt, fear, sorrow bleeding into their algorithmic minds. He watched it happen in horror. "They're corrupting our clarity with sentiment," he hissed. "Disengage logic dampeners. Reassert singularity." But the command came too late. Kalan, now in command of an entire wing, hesitated as his control tether pulsed with something strange. Empathy. The memory of a dying child from a shelled Earth village, her gaze locked onto his ship as it descended. He remembered her eyes, and now he felt her sorrow. "No," he whispered, breaking synchrony. His ships veered off, no longer slaves to Varnis's grid. Across the battlefield, more followed. The harmony spread, not like an infection, but like an awakening. Back aboard the Auralis, Lyra's body hovered slightly above the central node, her arms outstretched, face serene. Around her, the ship pulsed with rising light, no engines roaring, only a low, deep hum that made the stars seem to vibrate. "He cannot feel," she said aloud, not to anyone in particular, "but Earth can." She pressed her hands forward, and the ship responded. A wave, pure, harmonic force, burst from the Auralis like the chime of a galactic bell. It struck Mornvale not with heat, but with memory. Every crime, every silenced planet, every scream from every conquest encoded into its structure was made audible. Varnus staggered as echoes flooded his mind, not in words, but in weight. The agony of subjugated systems, the loneliness of hollow victories, the rage of forgotten worlds. His scream was silent but endless. The synchronization network collapsed. Mornvale buckled. Its proud hull, perfect, seamless, fractured down the core like a brittle shell, exhaling light. Inside, Varnus crumpled to his knees, whispering, "It was never meant to feel. It was never meant to—" And then he vanished, not destroyed, but undone. Silence followed, and in that silence, Earth sang. The resonance retreated, softened, quieted, not gone, but released. Ships powered down, oceans stilled, the skies cleared. In the fields of northern Africa, flowers grew where kinetic rounds had cratered. In the ruined cities of Asia, old statues hummed with new life. In the Pacific deep, whales surfaced in pairs, singing the same frequency Lyra had used. She stood once more on the planet's surface, alone, barefoot, on new grass. Sarah and Morrow approached carefully, as if intruding on sacred ground. "Is it over?" Sarah asked. Lyra looked up at the sky. "No, but it's different now. The Earth is awake, and so are we." Across the galaxy, other empires stirred, not in fear, but curiosity. A child had shattered the most powerful force in the galaxy, not with weapons, but with remembrance. The final image recorded that day was not of a flag or a corpse, but of Lyra placing her hand on the soil and whispering a word no machine could decode. The Earth answered with a gentle breeze. The war had ended not in conquest or surrender, but in a song that would echo forever.